I call the Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 let's start over again. There we go. I call the Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 council meeting to order. The council members and I met at 5 p.m. in the 6th floor council conference room upstairs to discuss tonight's agenda, which was amended to add item 6A under general business and a second executive session under item 8B. At 5:30, we moved here to the first floor chambers to conduct the council meeting in person. And because we encourage community involvement, we invite the public to also join us in person or participate remotely via Zoom or to view on BCAT. First up on tonight's agenda, we have the mayor's report. Welcome, Mayor Wheeler.
All right. Good evening, Council President, council members. So I've just got a couple slides to show you, and we'll get to the first one, Dave, when you're ready. All right. So recently you received a briefing from the city attorney, and it was kind of to get you up to speed on what is the city doing as far as supported housing. And so subsidized housing, and this is a briefing that I give out in the community, and I wanted to share with you that what we did before, you were briefed on was the subsidy and the stability preservation portion of the three-legged stool. And really that briefing was to give you a snapshot of what we, the city, are doing. What is our role? What are we contributing to some pretty substantial efforts? So before I leave this page, I want you to know under the subsidy portion, we talked about our contribution, but our contribution is just a part of that picture. Most of the subsidized housing provided in our city is done by nonprofits and other agencies. The Bremerton Housing Authority is our main low-income housing provider. So they offer hundreds of vouchers in our city, and they also have a pretty large property portfolio. What we highlighted was just recent acquisitions and ways that we assisted in that. But this has been going on for a while. Kitsap Mental Health Services also has a large portfolio. Peninsula Community Health Services, we've discussed their new portfolio. The St. Vincent de Paul housing portfolio, Kitsap Community Resources housing portfolio. Just so you know, there's substantial units out in our city that are providing affordable housing, and in some cases for our most vulnerable folks who need that assistance because of just unforeseen background, unforeseen circumstances that required it. So I wanted you to be aware there's a lot of work going on. There's also contracts with private landlords for just on-demand housing. The Housing Resource Center has a full resource list of rental housing of folks who've signed up to be notified. Now, granted, we need to keep working hard to build more housing. And I'm going to get to the next slide and kind of explain a little bit about what we've been doing as a city. All right, next slide, Dave. So the infill development toolkit. So this pretty substantial effort. I've got 3 pages here. Councilmember Younger, Councilmember Goodnow have been through this almost every step of the way, and it's been extensive. We really completed one project and came right back with another one. If you look down through here, starting in 2018, we created new zoning and codes for duplexes, townhomes, cottage housing to our low density residential neighborhoods. The density bonus, some of you are familiar with that from your time on the council. Increased the densities of medium density residential. You can see up there 10 to 18, high density residential 20 to 40. All of this is designed to put more units in our city responsibly. We analyze the grid, the infrastructure, what we feel can be supported. And you see a lot of this construction is already underway, especially up and down our Wheaton Way corridor and other parts of our city. Reduce the dimensions of manufactured homes. Some cities don't even allow manufactured homes. We actually increased some of the incentives to do so, make it a little easier to have them in our city. All right, next slide. Some plat adjustments. lot size averaging, just so you know, with lot size averaging, we, not all acreage is developable. And so we can't build on all of it for whatever reason. Might be close to a critical area. It might be sloped, next to a stream or wetland. So with that, this code allows us to configure, stay within the R10 zone, R10 minimum density, get the minimum number of housing in there, regardless if somebody's lost a quarter and even up to a half of their acreage. So it's something our city's done. We've amended the district center core development standards. Obviously, you've seen that with just around our city. You see now residential housing on the first floor of some of our these larger commercial projects. They were set aside for commercial at one point. We changed that zoning to allow it to just be filled with residential. And we'll let the developer and the investors work with the business owners when it's time to get those first floors ready for business commercial use. Next slide, please. And the ADUs. That was, we have led the way in our region with ADUs. Not only do we allow one ADU per property, but we allow two, and we have removed some of the restrictions around those. There's not many cities that have done that. And as far as the overall infill development toolkit, you should be proud that their city has this. One of the things about this entire effort is we have a category in the city. We start with deeply affordable housing, and that's going to be subsidized housing, which we've talked a lot about. We have workforce housing, which mainly is going to be the housing where we allowed it to be developed where a wall is shared. So that's workforce. And of course, we have the marketplace. So the important thing about the workforce housing is, as all of you know, we have some significant needs in our community, in healthcare, for example, or other areas where we need to have a place for our workforce to live in our community. The other one, though, is without housing development, it's hard for a nonprofit to come in and make the deals that we've been able to join together to make, like Mills Crossing. So that housing development leads into those type of opportunities. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this portion that we've been working on, and the comprehensive plan, really important exercise and document that's being created. So just join me and share this with the community. As much input as we can get in, the better. We do need more housing. All right, next slide. So I wanted to share this one. This is a neighborhood. I think, Councilor Chamberlain, you are well aware of this. So it's down in the Dib, a part of our, it's called the Pine Road Basin Project. And so Eagle and Robin, Dib and Sheridan, you probably noticed over the years that this kind of flooding occurs on a pretty regular basis. And so you probably also noticed this last year, driving down Sheridan heading west, significant construction occurring. So 3,000 feet of stormwater drain has been reconfigured to handle the stormwater that comes in. So now that's going to be contained, controlled the way it should be. Next slide, Dave. And see, this is what you see now. This is the finished product. Folks in future generations will never know what went on underground, which is a lot of the work we do is underground where you can't see it. Important work. But that's what we have as a finished product with a very nice road on top of it. I just put a map on the left-hand side to give you an idea. The yellow highlight is the area that's being corrected. So this is this great. I want to give kudos to the Public Works Department for getting this project done. That's it tonight, Council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor, especially for highlighting all that excellent affordable housing work we're doing as a city. Excellent. Next up, we'll go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Coughlin. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. A, claims and check register. One check numbers 403-498 through 403-625 and EFT numbers V37821 through V37915 and the grand total amount of $3,847,209.65. Two, regular payroll for pay period ending June 30th, 2023 in the amount of $1,074,166.31. Three, retiree payroll for pay period ending June 30th, 2023 in the amount of $39,975.61. B, minutes of meeting July 5th, 2023. C, minutes of study session July 12th, 2023. D, professional services agreement with Mason, Bruce, and Gerard for utility land comprehensive plan update. E, ordinance number 5480 to amend BMC chapter 5.36 entitled Special Events. F, agreement with Capital Heating and Cooling, Inc. for the Bremerton Library Building HVAC Systems project. G, professional services agreement with Kennedy Jenks for 2023 wastewater comprehensive plan update. And H, confirm appointment of Ashley Walchuk to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any one of these items? If so, either raise your hand on Zoom or line up at the podium. We got one on Zoom. Yes, Molly Brooks, please go ahead.
I didn't want to speak yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right, anyone else for consent agenda? All right, seeing no other public comment for the consent agenda, we'll go to the council for a motion. Councilmember Dennehy.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Councilmember Chamberlain. Call for the question.
Councilmember Chamberlain.
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is public recognition.
Perfect. As noted on the agenda, public recognition is an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any city-related item that is not already listed on the agenda. Please approach the podium or raise your hand on Zoom if you're viewing remotely and wait to be recognized. A reminder that now that it's election season, please refrain from any comments on political campaigns or ballot measures. We just ask that you state your name for use in the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and we'll use a timer system so that everyone is treated equally. With that, I'll open up public recognition and we'll start here in the room. Yes, please go ahead.
Mary Lou Long, a long-time resident of Bremerton. I'm here once again to say the Pledge of Allegiance with those that respect our nation, respect our flag, and all that it gives to us. And if you'd like to stand and join me, you can please do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's my intention by coming here, every council member of every council meeting, to say the Pledge of Allegiance because our council is not opening our public meetings with the pledge. Our national government, the House of Representatives, Congress, the Senate, the state and county governments, and many cities across the state open their public meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance to show respect to our nation. We're not perfect, but we're trying to get there. So we need to remember the concepts that are embodied in the flag and our Constitution and what gives us the right to free speech. I know people do not want to say it, and it's their right not to say it, but we need to stand with respect if it is being said and to honor our nation. I do have another issue. It's on the 10th city on Martin Luther King Way. It came to my mind that if people in this particular little street are being imposed by the unhoused, you want to call them unhoused, I call it a drug cult, and causing the people to not be able to enjoy the peaceful use of their property for fear of drug paraphernalia in their yard where their children might get a hold of it, insults and threats of bodily harm, and just the infestation of trash and rats and whatever comes along with that. I feel it's difficult to take care of some of these people. We have tried, or we're trying to house the homeless that want to be housed, but there are people that don't want to be housed. Their antisocial behavior, their addiction to drugs is making them an impossible type of group of people. And I was thinking, everybody seems to be wanting to change the names of things these days. He's or she's, and she's or he's, and up is down, and black is white, and white is black. I was thinking maybe we could call our jails helping centers, where we can take these people and put them
10
in
seconds.
for help and get them off of drugs, and then see what we can do with them and get them normalized in society. But right now,
And that's 30
nothing
minutes.
is being done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else for public recognition, either online or in the room? We got 2 online. Let's go to online and start with Molly Brooks.
Hi, my name is Molly Brooks. I'm from Kitsap Race. I have a short message to read from Kitsap Race. It is about the issue with anti-camping. We stand against any anti-camping legislation due to the negative impact on our unhoused neighbors. We support providing an area for camping to our unhoused neighbors with access to clean water and sanitation, to include restroom facilities and showers. We are in favor of the city increasing funding for housing and shelter services for our unhoused neighbors. We are in favor of immediately funding an increase in the number of shelter beds in Bremerton. We are opposed to any fines and fees that may be levied against our unhoused people for being in public spaces. We are opposed to sweeps of homeless camps that lead to the total loss of our neighbors' belongings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Let's go again online to Joey H.
Hello, my name is Joey Hayes. I'm also from Kitsap Race, and I helped to write the statement that Molly, who is my sister, just read. I have been attending council sessions as well as the study session. I was pleased at the study session that I attended last week to see how much interest our council has put in trying to find a solution that will also help our unhoused neighbors. I don't think any of us want the residents on MLK Way to be experiencing what they're currently experiencing. That isn't what people are asking. What we're asking is for a solution that serves both the community on MLK Way and our unhoused neighbors with a safe place to live. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Go again online. Saw 1 or 2 more hands. Patricia Morris, please go ahead. Patricia Morris.
Okay,
you.
thank you. I would just, I was there 2 weeks ago, and I'd just like to reiterate that I am against no camping ordinance because it further marginalizes the unhoused and makes them inaccessible for services that would, help resolve at least some of their issues. Also, I'm concerned about the sanitary facilities. My understanding is that there is a grant that the city has been given for $10,000. And now we're being told that there's liability. And I'm just curious about what that liability entails, as I know Seattle has such sanitary conditions. Facilities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And if I could encourage you to send an email to city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.us, we can get a response on the funding and liabilities. Thank you. All right, next up online, Peggy Erickson, please go ahead.
Hello, Council. Good evening. I am also from Kitsap Erase, the housing team, the newly formed housing team. We feel like homelessness is very interrelated with racism and privilege and classism. And so we formed a housing team to try and support our homeless neighbors. And I very much was pleased to hear that one of our council members suggested that you open some space where our unhoused neighbors can have a safe space with sanitation facilities. I fully endorse what Molly read, that statement, which I also helped work on. And we really feel like every human being should be given their dignity, given a space to be. Having access to sanitation is very important for everyone. And so I really encourage the council to find ways to get around the obstacles to giving people a place to be, because moving people from place to place and sweeping camps has a really negative impact on people's lives. And you know, a lot of these people don't have a place to be. Even people with campers have a hard time finding space where they can be. And those of us who have housing are privileged to have it. And making more housing available is super important. And I'm really glad to hear that you're working on that. But we do also have to address immediate needs. And no matter what a person's situation is, whether they're an addict or not, and not all the people that are on the unhoused are addicts. I think that's a stereotype that we need to be careful we don't adopt. All people should have the right to have somewhere to be. And just shuffling people from place to place and throwing out all the belongings of someone who doesn't have a home is really, really unjust. And I know that you don't, each of you don't want to be a part of that. So I really encourage you to work on these issues together and to set an example for other jurisdictions in Kitsap County on how to, you know, help people that are unhoused. And I know that it's not just Bremerton's problem, it's every jurisdiction has this problem and needs to come up with creative solutions, and the county as a whole as well. So thank you for your work on this, and you will be hearing from us. And we encourage you to keep up that work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the room for public recognition? Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Erin Hale, Executive Director of the Downtown Bremerton Association, here to provide you just a quick update on our progress. The DBA board is stronger than ever, having just undergone an official Main Street training under the leadership of our Main Street affiliate director, who came all the way from Walla Walla to oversee a 5-hour strategy session. My board is bonded, activated, and excited to invite more people into the mission. I'm working closely with Lynn Horton in the Creative District as their goals directly align with our revitalization efforts. Tomorrow we'll be meeting to discuss buildings and their owners, as well as the best strategies in order to develop positive working relationships with them. Initiated by the work with Lynn, I'm very pleased to announce that on August 3rd, representatives from the State Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation will be visiting Bremerton to tour downtown and make note of the historic and cultural significance of our buildings and land. I'm extremely honored to share that the archaeologists from the Suquamish tribe will also be in attendance. Our goal is to submit our findings in hopes that an official ordinance is passed to help us protect our city assets. This would also qualify us as a CLGS certified local government, further qualifying us for federal grants. Mayor Wheeler, Jeff Coughlin, Michael Goodnow, and now Denise Fry will also be in attendance, committed to our collective efforts. I just wanted to thank you all for your continued support, for being responsive to the needs of our business owners, and for your guidance as I personally continue to learn and grow in this role. I wanted to share also that unfortunately, Life in Mauve is closing, as you probably know. That June 23rd is their last day. And I highly encourage you to get in and shop. They have really beautiful jewelry and locally made wares. August 5th is the last day for Ish Vintage. They've been in our community for a really long time. Please go and support both of these businesses. They're offering significant discounts. And I just want to make sure that they're sent off with all of our support and love. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else for public recognition? Yes, please go on. Go ahead in the room.
My name is Maureen Hoyce. My husband and I are business owners and we have a rental on Kitsap Way. And it's directly across from Forest Lawn Cemetery. And I did email a letter to the council earlier this week, but I'm just going to read the email so that we can kind of address everything that I talked about. But we're having a vagrancy problem with drug users because we're finding needles on our property. We're finding human feces on our property. So we know that there's a drug problem. The new culvert that was installed where the fish passage, they've been coming in and out of that and they're living in it, off and on. I even had the floor covering store, Straight Floors, that is our tenant on the property, tell me today that they have been getting deliveries of food to that site where like a DoorDash or something like that pulls up with food and they come up and they get their food and they go back down into this covered area. I am suggesting that the city approach possibly fencing off that area because it's so far off of the road that you can't see it when you drive by. And it wasn't until we had theft this week that the police, I think, were really aware about it, of it. And the police did come yesterday and they did a sweep of the culvert and they did push some people out of it. What they did with the people, whether they arrested them, whether they had drugs on them, I don't know, but some action has been taken. I know Chris Hendrickson that owns the Lewis Funeral Chapel and the Forest Lawn Cemetery did email our mayor and whether he was involved with, getting that done at that time or the email that I'd sent to the council, there has been at least an attempt to try to help us with this issue. There's also been an issue of the abandoned cars parked on Kitsap Way that some of them don't even have wheels or tires and they've been sitting there for months on end. Some of them are filled with people's belongings, like they're storing their things there and they come to their cars every once in a while and get out what they need. And I'm not sure where they're staying, but that's seems to be the type of vehicles that are parked there. And I am just wondering why, for months that the city can't do anything as far as impounding those vehicles. I am hoping that some kind of action like that and also the fencing of the culvert area, I really think that that could take care of a lot of the issues that are going on in our area right now. But with the theft this week,
Just 10 seconds.
With the theft this week, my husband and I found a pry bar that they left behind when they were breaking in and also wire cutters. So these aren't just
And that's 3
homeless
minutes. So
people.
sorry to stop you there.
Okay. all right.
Apologies.
Thank you.
Nothing personal, got to keep it equal. But no, thank you for your comment. And yes, the mayor administration, I know we're copied on those emails. So hopefully they'll be able to get back to you with what's possible to do with right now. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joe Walter, West Bremerton. I have to tell a story. I'm struck by the story that this woman has just shared, because I've been trying to bring some folks who are part of that unhoused community out to speak with you, and was kind of close to having someone who would record his words, which I could then have you hear during my time. But we've texted, and he's in an emergency room, and the story is that he heard what's going on and is afraid of being moved, and he moved to West Bremerton, probably the Culvert area, and while moving his stuff, took a tumble down a couple hills, and now he's in the emergency room. That's an aside. I came to say that G2 Housing supports the position of Kitsap Erase Housing Systems team. I'm a part of Erase, that team as well. And G2 just wanted to add a couple things. Is there a timer?
I got just over a minute and a half. Yeah.
Thank you. The points, just to repeat them. We stand against anti-camping legislation. We support providing an area for camping that will include clean water, sanitation facilities, including showers. We're in favor of the city increasing funding, and we put that in there because it felt like you were talking about that during this study session meeting, making that part of the ordinance somehow. Thinking about that funding going towards shelter beds, because what's going to happen in the winter? No fines, no fees, and please no sweeps. But G2 wants to add that I guess we're concerned that if an ordinance is passed, that it'll start being enforced and people will be moved and they may scatter around the community. Please look at a place where they can go, and don't start enforcing bans until the place exists. And that to include transportation, please, because as people are moving, there are their possessions to consider. And about the toilets, we haven't had a formal response from the city. We've heard informally that we're concerned about liability, but can there be a discussion where it is explained, because we think that liability concern is one that we really have to push back against. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I think the mayor might want to give a response to some of that.
Thank you, council. Just as far as winter goes, the Salvation Army will stand up a cold weather winter shelter again this year. So it'll start early November, the 1st of November, going all the way through April. Just wanted you to be aware. And Councilor Fry did ask for a briefing, and I will share with you that I am working with our major community partners to stand up another shelter in the city of Bremerton. So know that's coming. Obviously, that involves real estate. So when we get to the point where I can brief you, you will be the first to know. Okay, thank you. And it's a very high priority. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. All right. Anybody else for public recognition? Yes, in the room. Please go ahead.
Hi, council members. I just wanted to thank Erase for their advocacy. Well put. But I wanted to speak to thank the city of Bremerton. I manage the downtown Bremerton Library, and I wanted to give a recognition, shout out to Chris Mottner, to Joe Stansberry, to Matt Donlicott, and their whole team for just their incredible support. They're managing a great project and they're doing great work. So that's it. Thank you.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Lisa Lechuga.
Thank you and great news. Anyone else for public recognition? Any online, Dave? Not seeing any online, not seeing any in the room. All right, we'll go ahead and close public recognition and we'll move on to general business.
General business item 6A. Local agreement with Kitsap County Prosecuting Attorney. Our presenters tonight are City Attorney Fennell and Assistant City Prosecutor Harvey.
Good evening, council. Can you hear me? Great. I'd like to present from here. It's just more
I
comfortable.
think maybe just the microphone a little closer to make
Little
sure it's picked up
closer?
online.
How about that?
There we go. Now I'm
Got
hearing
it? Got
speakers.
that.
Perfect.
So, thank you for having me here. I know that you all are used to seeing City Prosecutor Gary Hersey. He's on leave right now. And so I have with me tonight Amanda Harvey, who's our Assistant City Prosecutor. And since you don't know her, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So, Amanda is really part of our original team. Whenever the city started having in-house prosecution, the city did not always have our own prosecution team. The city used to contract for all prosecution with the Kitsap County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. In 2009, the city decided to bring that in-house. And when they did, they hired Amanda back in 2009. And so, that wasn't even her first job. So Amanda had been working in public defense at the county level prior to coming to the city. And so she's been with the city for, like I said, since 2009. She was also in the civil division. She went into private practice for a brief moment, but came back to us last year. And even when she was in private practice, she was still representing the city. So she's been a part of our team on the city attorney's office, like I said, for 14 years. And again, been an attorney in Kitsap County for over 20 years. We also have on our staff, Carrie Mann, who was another member of the original team. She was hired as the legal assistant for the prosecution team back when it started in 2009. And again, like Amanda, Carrie brought with her a wealth of experience. She was the supervisor for administrative services at the county prosecutor's office before she came here, and she was in that role for 10 years. She's been here, like I said, since 2009. And even still, we have even more experience. Michael Rea, who also backs up our prosecutors. He's been a lawyer in Kitsap County since 2007, on our team since 2014. And then you all know Gary Hersey. His start in criminal law started when he was back, actually, hadn't even finished law school. He was back at Tulane and was representing indigent defendants in their legal clinic in 2011, made his way up to Washington in 2016 and joined our team in 2020. And so the reason I say all that is I'm proud of our staff. I'm really proud of our prosecution team. And we are fortunate in that our prosecution team has a wealth of experience. Many municipalities don't invest in their people to the extent that Bremerton has. And I just wanted the council to know that it has served you well. You have great experienced prosecuting team representing the city in Bremerton Municipal Court. And they're a group of people that you should be proud of. And so what we're here on today is the request that the city council authorize the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Kitsap County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. If you're asking yourself, didn't we just do this? The answer is yes. The council has already approved one ILA with the prosecutor's office a few months ago. That was for in-kind services, what you kind of consider of mutual aid, where we back each other up, where they would come and appear for us if we had a conflict case, and when we would go and appear for them if they had a conflict case. So yes, there's been a previous ILA, but this one is a little bit different, and I can explain how it's different. This was added into the packet. It's at item 6A. And if you go to the interlocal agreement, I'll just walk you through the agreement so that we can talk about the provisions. So the first page, like many of our interlocal agreements, it identifies the parties and the statutory authority for entering into a local agreement. The first two recitals state that, one, there's an RCW that permits the agreement, and two, that the county has jurisdiction over all criminal violations of state law occurring within the corporate boundaries of the city. That seems very straightforward. And if you think about it, it is. You're never in Bremerton, but not in Kitsap County, right? And all of our prosecutions for felony crimes are already being prosecuted by the Kitsap County Prosecutor's Office. That's an elected office. It's located in Port Orchard, and those are all filed in Superior Court. That doesn't mean, though, that the prosecuting, even though they are currently handling our felony cases, we still have jurisdiction over our state law violations that are misdemeanors that occur within our corporate boundaries. And that distinction was actually visited by the Court of Appeals in 2018 in a case called State versus Taylor. In that case, a gentleman was accused of driving under the influence, and his conduct was alleged to have occurred within the city of Spokane, but it was charged under state law in Spokane County District Court. And Mr. Taylor's defense attorney brought a motion saying that the district court didn't have jurisdiction because the city had jurisdiction because they had enacted an ordinance that adopted that code. The Court of Appeals disagreed. They said that state law is always able to be prosecuted in the county district court. The county prosecutor wasn't prosecuting under a municipal ordinance. They had their own authority under state law, and that state law didn't cease to exist simply because the municipality had adopted an ordinance adopting that RCW. So the distinction is whether the person is charged under state law or under a municipal code. The person is charged under municipal code in a municipal court by municipal prosecutors. Same person could be charged in state district court by a prosecuting attorney under state law. And so the difference being the citation in the criminal complaint. That court also noted that the only issue that needed to be taken into account when a person is charged in district court was that under state law, the municipality and the county in which the charges were filed need to work out an arrangement for the case being tried or being prosecuted in that jurisdiction rather than in the municipality. And that stems from a decision that happened back in Whatcom County involving this Whatcom County and the city of Bellingham. That decision was from 1996, and Bellingham was having trouble maintaining a jail as well as other aspects of prosecution in municipal court, and decided they just didn't want to do it anymore. So they repealed their municipal code, shifting all of those cases, thousands and thousands of the cases that they had been prosecuting to the county. And Whatcom County didn't think that was fair. There was a lawsuit and the court agreed. And so now you have a situation where it's certainly permissible, it's legal. The court is going to uphold those charges. It's not an issue of jurisdiction, it's an issue of payment. And so what you have in front of you is that arrangement that's required so that if we decide to send some cases to the county for prosecution, that we are doing so in a manner in which conforms with the law. And so going on with the whereases, it indicates that it's going to be a limited number. Certainly, we're not going to be requesting to send all of our cases. Quite frankly, the county does not have the capacity, and that's my understanding, for us to even do that. After talking to them, we come up with what we think they can handle and what we think would be necessary for us to refer. But it is not going to be all of our cases. And so it is going to be a limited number. The remaining of the whereases certainly just indicate that we wish to cooperate and that the parties agree that this is in the best interest of the community members that are served by both parties. And I think that's important to note, that the parties to the agreement are doing this in the best interest of the community. So getting into the agreement, you'll see that the purpose, it just states what I hope is plain language, that it is for the prosecuting attorney's office in Kitsap County to process misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor violations of state law alleged to have occurred within the corporate boundaries of the city when requested by the city and agreed to by the prosecutor. And that's going to cover the full, process of a criminal referral. from prosecution, defense, adjudication, and any ancillary services like probation. However, it's important to note, though, that it could also just include the prosecutor reviewing a police report and a probable cause statement and declining to file charges. And so the reason I think that that's important to note is that there is no financial incentive here for the prosecutor to file charges against anyone. And I don't want anyone to have that impression. They could certainly review the charge, the referred charges, and decide not to pursue them. Maybe if they don't think that there's probable cause or for whatever other reason, we would still be obligated to pay that for that referral. And so our agreement with them is just based on the referral, not on what happens after that. The agreement does exclude certainly police services and jail services. We have a separately executed contract with the county for jail services. So if anyone referred to the county under this agreement is subsequently incarcerated, we're going to still continue to pay those charges just like we would if we had held on to the case. The definition of referral is important to note here is that it certainly isn't going to apply to the existing referrals that we do. We're certainly not going to start paying them to take felony cases. They're already doing that under state law. And it only applies to those for which the sole referral is a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. The agreement, of course, has the regular terms that you're going to see in all of our ILAs. Although I will just certainly point out on the administration, we're going to work together to figure out what the capacity is on this. It is shifting. As you all know, there is going to be a big change in state law next month. Drug offenses, which were previously felonies and then decriminalized and then now misdemeanors. That happens next month, right? The Blake fix that we talked about several months ago. If what we're initially anticipating is about 10 to 15 referrals per week for about 8 to 10 weeks. If we get into the end of August and there's a significant number of referrals, we're going to be working with the prosecutor's office and they might tell us that they can't no longer support this. So this agreement does allow them that ability to say, stop. And so, and that's really necessary because this agreement does cover the full, like I said, the full process. That includes defense. It's important to know that our public defenders here, as well as at the county, they are limited in the number of cases that they can take. Obviously, the county's public defense resources are staffed to anticipate their filing needs, not ours on top of it. And so they will have to modulate basically what they're able to accept from us based on what their capacity is. And so while we're initially, anticipating 10 to 15 referrals per week, that could change. And I could be back in a month telling you that they've said that they can't continue to support this. We are hopeful, though, in our discussions that we've at least got this right for right now. Determination, that's what I talked about, that either party shall have the right to terminate it at any time for any reason with or without cause. And the rest of it is just our typical language that we have in ILAs. So anticipating some questions. First, why is this coming to you now? I can tell you that it's been in the works for quite some time. This isn't in response to anything that's certainly recent. I started working on this early last month, and even before then, thinking about it. Last month, the council approved additional hires in the municipal court related to docket backlog. Our office, as well as Defense Counsel, had certainly been experiencing the effects of that backlog. And started to put together what we could do in response to how we experience that backlog as well. This came up as an option. And then I've been in discussions with Chad Enright's office and ironing out the details for the last month or so. I just got the kind of the go ahead from them yesterday. And the reason that I added it on tonight instead of putting it on a study session is that you've ever noticed the signatures on our interlocal agreements, we have a cycle. Other folks have a cycle as well. And so interlocal agreements take a long time to process. It's my understanding if the council were to approve this tonight, it will go to the county commissioners on Monday, the 24th. If we put this on study session and then onto our regular session calendar for August 2nd, the commissioners wouldn't get it until their August 14th meeting. And so when you're talking about an ILA that really, it goes through the end of the year, just as date wise, but we're really looking at a key period of between 8 and 10 weeks. A 3 to 4 week delay is significant. And so that initial approval for additional hires was through the end of August. This goes through the end of September. That gives us some time to evaluate to see if for our purposes and how we use dockets that we're comfortable with reverting back to, I guess, the status of things at that point. But like I said, it's certainly not our intention for this to be a long-term arrangement. We think it'll help. We are hopeful that it will be short-lived. As far as controls, the thoughts that I had for between our office and the council and approval on this is that I perhaps come back to council at the end of August and have it on as just an information only at a study session. Or additionally, I could maybe do a report to the Public Safety Committee the first week of September to kind of see where we're at so that I could report back on how many referrals have been made and where are we on this allocation of between what I had, if it's 10 to 15 and it's 8 to 10 weeks, that's somewhere between $40,000 and $75,000. It's this is something that's paid out of existing fund balance, right? And so it's something I can understand that the council would want to keep updated on. But as I said, initially, I think we're looking at between $40,000 and $75,000. That is the only things that is all that I have right now. I'm happy to answer questions. And of course, Amanda's here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Attorney Fennell. Let me first ask if any member of the public wishes to comment on this item. Either in person or online. So give it a few seconds. Oh, yes.
Joe Walter, West Bremerton. Just questions come to my mind. Where does $45,000 to $70,000 come from if it's not already budgeted?
Yeah, Finance Director Riley, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, so as Attorney Fennell commented, the existing fund balance savings at year end, we had realized increased fund balance, so it'd come out of what's in our reserves for this year, and we would amend it at year end.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Fine. Okay. Seeing no public comment, I'll go ahead and go to the council for a motion, and let me go to Councilmember Fry.
I'd like to move to approve the interlocal agreement with Kitsap County and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the agreement with substantially the same terms and conditions as presented.
Seconded.
Second.
Second
Third.
by Councilmember Dennehy, third by Councilmember Chamberlain. All right, we have a motion and a second. We are open for discussion. Councilmember Fry, the floor is yours.
First of all, Attorney Fennell, I'd really like to commend you and your office for managing a challenging situation and always having the best interests of the community in mind, it appears to me, because that's what I'm most interested in. And I think I can speak on behalf of the Public Safety Committee. I'm sure they're going to have plenty to say. We commend you and really appreciate the diligence and the dedication. Thank you for bringing us a tool to help. I would like to ask triage. That word comes up for me when I think about this. I'm assuming that you're going to be triaging cases
Sure.
and putting those, can you tell
Sure,
us a little
and
bit about that?
I can. So it's not specified in the ILA because I wanted some flexibility there. But at this point, our focus is going to be on defendants who are in custody. And so if a person is being booked into the jail and by the Bremerton Police Department with a referral for charges, that those will be referred to the Kitsap County Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Thank you for that. And I think that's it for my questions.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to echo Chairwoman Fry's thanks from the Public Safety Committee and your office's ability to respond and adapt to a situation that is really unfortunate. I especially appreciate the case law and the jurisprudence that you walked us through, letting us know the legal authority and how this has played out in other jurisdictions and what that looks like. The main question that I have is, as a member of the public just stated, this is $40,000 to $70,000, and possibly more depending on how long this agreement stays in effect. The statement, attorneys heavily rely on court dockets for effective representation in criminal cases, and the docketing backlog is impacting prosecution and defense. I think the public deserves a little insight into that. And so I'm not sure if City Attorney Fennell or Assistant City Prosecutor Harvey wants to give a little more light into, if you feel you're able to, how docketing has been impacting and why the need for this interlocal agreement is necessary.
I can just make a couple comments about that. There are docketing problems, either missing information or wrong information buckets that causes the parties as well as the judge to have to put in extra time and work to try to find out the correct information, recreate the wheel, if you will. And there is a backlog right now, as you've already heard under the previous comments, but when we have to spend time and effort kind of recreating the record and finding out what actually happened, that's creating even more and more of a backlog on our calendars. We have a limited time every morning. From my office gets here at 7 and we have to charge our cases by 8. And then we only have the court from 8 to 9 for the in custodies, and it's getting really backed up. And the more effort and time we have to put into trying to find the correct information that we're not getting right now in the dockets, it's just pushing these cases back and back. And that affects everybody. It affects the defendant primarily. It affects the attorneys, it affects the judge and the court and the whole wheel.
Thank you for that. And just a follow up to that, I'm a member of the bar as well, but my expertise is in civil rights law. For those lay people and those who are not, experts in criminal law, can you just briefly describe what a docket is and who's normally responsible for upkeeping that?
So the docket is a court record that's maintained by the court clerks under the authority of the presiding judge. It's actually a court rule and statutory requirement that the records be kept. So it's statewide. There's a statewide database that all of the information of all of the proceedings that are going on in courts are entered into this database. It's administered at the state level by the administrative office of the courts with oversight from the Supreme Court justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And so those dockets are available to criminal justice and practitioners as well as lay people, but we're the people who use them every day in their practice. An example would be that for example, if a person has, let's say a criminal law violation and it's pending in Kitsap County District Court, and they're meeting with their public defender, and their public defender sees that they have a pending case in Bremerton Municipal Court, but there's no docket entry for that. It's difficult for that public defender to adequately advise their client because they don't have that record to show the procedural posture of this other case. Knowing that procedural posture impacts the advice that that person gives to the person that's sitting in front of them. It doesn't mean that they can't make a phone call and get a recording or something like that. But I think if you'll recall the agenda bill that the council saw last month, Court Administrator Johnson said that it was typically updated within 24 and 48 hours. That was, I guess, like the standard. And at that point, I think it was, I think she had said three weeks delay. We've certainly experienced delays that are longer than that, where going to the review a case and the case several months had passed and the docket information or the particular documents were not in the docket. And so that's the different issues. One is the court's function and one is our function. Of course, we use the information in a different way. But that's kind of how it impacts the full, all the participants.
Thank you for clarifying that for me and for the public. So just to be clear, you made a statement of what a talented and seasoned prosecutorial staff we have. This isn't a failing of prosecutorial staff. This is actually data that the defense needs. And as Chairwoman Fry stated during your response, it can impact not only everybody that you stated, but also the victims of crimes.
Oh, absolutely. But and keep in mind, I think some people sometimes have a misconception that prosecuting attorneys are our function is to seek convictions and put people in jail. And that isn't the case. It's to seek justice. And that includes safeguarding the rights of the folks that are accused. And so there are a lot of facets of our criminal justice system that put that burden on prosecutors. We accept it, we welcome it. And this is not something that we're bringing just because this is more work for us or, it's making it, really hard or something like that, even to do our job. It's that there's concern about how this is impacting everyone involved.
So I'm just going to boil it down to one final statement. And I want you to let me know if I'm being correct in my understanding of it. This is something within the purview of the municipal court and that needs to be updated normally 24 to 48 hours. And there's been delays 3 weeks or longer.
That was addressed in the previous agenda bill. The council has already approved that request. This is, I guess, the downstream effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't want to muddle that the prosecuting attorney's office and the court have very different functions in the judicial system and certainly don't. It's like, this is what we think we need to do our jobs. And just like we didn't comment on what they requested of the council, it's whether or not, how this comes to be rectified is really not is not part of our responsibility, but how we respond to it is. And that is what we're doing here is our response.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your work on this.
Member Chamberlain, Council Member Chamberlain.
Okay, so I want to be cautious about how I ask this because I really appreciated what you said that you didn't comment on their item and so I guess so we're talking about downstream, the downstream effect. So we're talking about cases that have been in backlog, but folks are still kind of sitting there because there's been a lot of extra time put into looking for their information. I'm just trying to keep it simple here.
Sure. So maybe I'll try to paraphrase maybe how you were describing the in custody calendar, but if I'm wrong, let me know. Okay. There's a set amount of time to get through in custody cases every morning. You only have an hour. If you have a bunch of people, you have an hour. If you have one person, you have an hour. And when cases are being called and it's a case for which there isn't a up-to-date docket, it takes a lot longer to deal with that particular case than it would have if there was updated docket information, right? And so if you recall, that agenda bill from last month also talked about how there were really large jail calendars. If you only get to 5 people that morning, then the rest, and let's say that there were 10 on, then the other 5 have to come back the next day.
And so it seems like there's concern with not having swift carriage of justice, right? Like having, like you said, you wanted to safeguard folks' rights, people who were accused. And so I guess, maybe you can't speak to this, but if we approve the extra funding for the extra help to improve the backlog that they were experiencing, have you seen fruition of that? Or is this perhaps that's the question I wanted to ask. I wanted to be cautious about asking because I know maybe you can't speak to that.
I think that we have seen improvement, but we haven't, it's still a problem that we need to address on our end.
Okay.
So yeah, we're hopeful that this isn't going to be we're hopeful this isn't going to be a long-standing problem. This is something that we want to do, like I said, for hopefully like 8 to 10 weeks. That initial agenda bill, I think, went through the end of August. Certainly if things on our end, if we experience it is we're no longer seeing these either the errors or the backlog, then we could stop earlier. We're not like tied into doing this with the county.
And I'm not very confident in certain things happening within our court system. So I appreciate, and I just want to say this like publicly too, that I appreciate this alternative way to help people accused seek justice. Not only that, but victims as well. But how awful is it for folks to have to just have their case deferred, week after week or day after day because the paperwork's not proper from Bremerton?
Yeah, and I don't know that it's happening week after week. I think there's some delays, like
a few days.
Well, and that's not really the only issue. I think that was just an example of an issue. Another thing would be in preparing, let's say, a motion to revoke. Prosecuting attorney, you can't tell what the person was required to do, or if the previous documents aren't in the court file or they're not in the docket. That certainly takes more time. Same thing with advising someone who's facing one, even if it's in another jurisdiction. So there's almost, there's very little that criminal defense attorneys or prosecutors, not just our prosecutors anywhere, do that doesn't rely on this information.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the length of time on the jail roster was just like one little example of where not having that information is causing a problem. There's a lot of other ones that we do.
And so these are going to be, at the referral of the prosecuting attorney's office.
No,
okay.
It's going to be from the police department.
The police department's going to refer. Thank you
So
for that
normally
clarification.
the police department, if it's a felony, they send it to the prosecuting attorney's office in Port Orchard. If it's a misdemeanor, they send it to the city prosecutors.
Okay.
Under this agreement, we will work out a process, assuming everyone passes it, where misdemeanors are referred to them as well when they're booking someone in jail.
Okay. Thank you very much for this creative solution. I approve of it. So.
Councilmember Younger.
Okay, so first of all, explain to the public why are we taking so long discussing this general business item. So this was not before study session.
It
So
wasn't, no.
this becomes our study session. So I have 3 questions.
Yeah, it's two in one.
Yeah, 3 questions. Okay. First question, it says that the ILA anticipates between 10 and 15 cases referred to Kitsap County Prosecutor's Office per week. What is our current workload on average historically in the last year? How many cases?
This is about 10%.
So you usually prosecute about 100 misdemeanor cases a week?
No. A week, yeah, well, no. So let me think about that again. It's I meant over the full, so this would be on a weekly basis, it is higher. On a yearly basis, it's smaller. So from public safety a few months ago, I talked about our case stats, and it's about 1,000 cases a year It was 896 last year. We're on pace to do about 1,100, I think, this year.
As you
And-
know, I'm an accountant, so 1,000 divided by 52. So we're talking about 20 cases a week. Does that make sense?
Right, no, what I'm saying is it's 10 to 15 cases a week. I think if we do that for eight to 10 weeks, it's going to be about 100 cases.
No, I understand that part. I'm trying to get, hopefully I'm clear. How many cases do we do currently for the last year on average per week? So in other words, we're going to refer 10 to 15 over to prosecutor's office. How many are we going to do in-house?
Right.
How many historically have we done in-house on a weekly basis?
So, yeah, take 1,000 and divide it by 52.
All right, so good, very good. So about 20.
Right. And
Okay.
so to be clear, this is just what we're going to focus on is in custody charging. We will still continue to do out of custody chargings and we'll probably still do potentially also do some in custody chargings as well.
All right.
That's just going to be the priority.
No worries. Second question. I said I had 3. The second one, this one's pretty easy. So you mentioned, gave an example of $500 for your referral. Any referral that goes over, we get charged $500. The prosecutor could say, you know what, this case has no merit. I'm not going to prosecute, collect my $500. Conversely, if they decide to prosecute and the defendant decides his or her right to a trial, we're only on the hook for $500, even if it goes to trial. So that's a bargain.
That's correct.
In that case. And this also pays for the public defender as well.
Correct.
$500 is a bargain for prosecuting any case, in my opinion, unless it was quick, I don't want to prosecute this one because of attorney fees and all that. I mean, right?
I think
It's a good deal.
It is a good deal, especially when you, I mean, if you look at the rates that the prosecutor's office charges our neighbors, Port Orchard, Bremerton, or Port Orchard, Bainbridge, and Paulsbo, just for prosecution. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it is a good deal. And you think it's, you talk about going to trial, keep in mind that person, let's say they're convicted at trial and it's an offense they're going to be on probation for 5 years. It's also covering all that.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my softball question. Now the third question, which is the tough question, probably, maybe not. And that is, you mentioned this is for 8 to 10 weeks, and we'll see if the county has the capacity to continue on, or if they say, hey, wait, we can't do this. What's plan B?
I think that's something that we would have to address during the budget.
Like a little more clarity. So
I
what's
think that we
plan
could
B?
look at, whether there are solutions for the, and certainly, like I said, I'm downstream from this, whether there are solutions, I think with the court that might be able to help. That maybe, for example, the initial allocation that the council did was inadequate and additional funds are necessary. Whether we could look at whether having additional staff in our office could do something as well. So I'm hopeful, I guess is what I'm saying, that it's not going to, that things are going to get on track and we won't go beyond that period. If we're not, we'll have to come up with something else.
Okay.
Yes, additional comments?
I have a quick question, just an idea that kind of somebody had once I wanted to bring up as we go into budget season, but, and please cut me off if it's not germane, but I mean, when it comes to staffing, this is a great opportunity to outsource some of this, but in-house, can we actually, in our budget, hire more employees, like even fund another judge by, in our budget?
There's statutory authority for that.
Other comments,
you.
questions? Perfect. I'll just one clarifying question is if I got it right, the initial term is 6 months. So
It goes to
this-
the end of this year.
Okay.
So 5 months, I guess. And I mean, this is also one of those agreements where if we don't, send notice to terminate, then it continues.
Mhm.
It could be something that we even have in place for a while, right? And then use it as they have capacity and we have a need, and continue to work with council, I guess, on that. But I would like some guidance on what you want as far as oversight. Certainly I want to be able to report back to you, and I don't want to come back and $150,000 later and we're still doing it.
Perfect. I liked your suggestion of a report after a couple of months of the Public Safety Committee or perhaps at a study session. I
Sure,
think
and I'm
that'd be
happy to work
appropriate.
with you all on that. Like I said, my understanding is that if the council approves this tonight, it will be able to be in front of the commissioners Monday. If that's the case, there will certainly be a period of time where we make sure that the process is set up. So it might be for making the referrals. There have been discussions, but of course, there's going to need to be a few more. And then making sure it's a good time for everyone to start and then start.
Perfect. I'll just wrap up with a comment that, I think it's unfortunate that the city has to spend this extra amount of money. It's not negligible, but I think the Councilmember Younger's questioning, it is quite a good deal with the county. And just extend my appreciation again to all our staff for working hard on this, including you, Attorney Fennell. Much appreciated. With that, I'll go ahead and call for the question.
Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, that concludes general business. Next up, we have council reports. Council reports are an opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues in the district or upcoming events or speak on any other city-related topic. Since this is the last council meeting of the month, we'll start with District 7, Councilmember Eric Younger.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, Mayor, I appreciate the slides on all that you, the administration and the council has done over the years for affordable housing. And I don't want to minimize that, and appreciate working with you over the years on this. And I think our city has done more in this county than any other city. I don't think no one could argue to the contrary. My observation, though, is I think coincides with everyone's observation, probably in this whole room, in this whole city, this whole county, and that we're at a crisis level here in this city with houseless issues. And I'm looking forward to the study session next week. We'll be talking again about apparently we're going to be working on some type of version of the Lakewood ordinance. I really do believe that there has to be a component in there not only to be in compliance with the Ninth Circuit, but also just to be human, that we need to have an alternative. If the city does not have adequate shelter, and we want to have an ordinance says that there's no camping in certain areas, which I'm okay with, then we have to provide an area that's safe for people to go to, that has the basic needs of toilet facilities and a place to wash. I really do believe we have to head that direction. I really do. So I'm looking forward to see what we craft next Wednesday. It should be interesting. Whatever we craft won't solve homelessness, but at least we can establish a base level of decency. Goodness gracious. And that's not what we have now. And I also have a lot of compassion for the people that spoke up MLK Way. I have people in my district that are being affected by homelessness. And my hope is whatever we come up with addresses both sides. So I'm looking forward to working with you guys. And, short sleeves on, but let's roll up our sleeves and let's go ahead and do something productive. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have District 5, Councilmember Michael Goodnow.
Yeah, kind of same sentiment that was just shared. I'm looking to figure out that is Councilmember Fry and I often talk about And, you know, what's the and solution? What's the? We don't do the right thing. I just want to mention there's, again, the Callow group is very active. And we have worked out something where we've repurposed some older Manette planters, and they're going to be placed down on Callow. We get about 7 planters maybe moving down there. Local merchants will take care of those and plant them and care for them. So it's pretty exciting. Also want to mention that the Kitsap Pride event is this weekend. I should have made a slide, but I didn't. I've got a lot on my plate right now. And it's Saturday from 2 to 9 up at the fairgrounds. We have 100+ vendors, more than I think we've had 16. It's crazy, and I've turned people away. So it was it's been very challenging. Anyways, it'll be a good time for sure. Kitnetpride.org for information on that. And kind of, you know, we used to do it here in the city at Evergreen Park, and our board's been talking about a way to maybe bring something back and, you know, kind of have our eyes on maybe like a little festival that happens different, but maybe on the new square, something where we have a big street dance or something like that, maybe a week or so beforehand. So anyways, that's all I have for you. Thanks.
All right, next up, District 4, Councilmember Quinn Dennehy.
Thank you, Council President. I'd just like to echo Councilmember Younger's thoughts. I'm actually looking forward to collaborating. I know we have some elections coming up. If there's a council that can find a balanced approach that is led with empathy and compassion and practicality, I believe that this is the council and that we should be doing it before terms are up. Thank you.
All right, next up, District 2, Councilmember Denise Fry.
I actually have a few slides. I'm not going to echo anything because I was already referred to in those comments. Oh, is this where it starts? Really, Dave? Do I have to start? There we go. That's better. Okay, now go to the next one. This is a bit of tongue in cheek. And Tom Nucky, I hope that you take it this way because your staff has already answered the questions. And so there's just, this is one of those, you ever seen those bridges that kind of go and then stop? You know, like in LA, I used to see them a lot. There'd be an overpass and then it would just end. And you always wonder, gosh, what happened? Did they run out of money or, you know what? So this is Kitsap County's or Bremerton's version of that, where we have a bike lane that was required. I mean, and thankfully it was required of the developer of those apartments. And so the developer went ahead and put in this bike lane, but of course it's not connected to anything. So this is going to cause people to pay attention. And they're going to write to their city council person or call them up on the phone and say, what is going on? So I think that this intersection on Rydell is actually a poster child for how we could collaborate with the county, because they're one end of it, one side of it, we're the other. I think that's being done now. It had kind of bubbled down. And then, you know, when we talk about these services, mitigation or having to put in a bike lane as part of the package, if there's going to be future work done on that road, I don't know, just a question. Wouldn't it be better to put that money in a fund and spend it all at the same time and make sure we're connecting everything and everything's copacetic? So anyway, that's just a comment from my frame of mind about how we could alleviate public perception that is negative and maybe streamline the process a little bit more. Next slide, please. Because of that, I'm sure that President Coughlin is going to talk about this too. So we're having it in his district at Evergreen Park. Multimodal transportation is coming to Bremerton, and I think this council is very supportive of it. It's certainly going to impact my district and District 2, where our mayor used to live. I'm very proud of that, by the way, Mayor. He used to live where I live now on Halverson. And anyway, we're talking about multimodal paths. And we'd love to see I'm sure President Coughlin is going to talk more about this. We were able to get Josh Farley on board. He's going to be around. Bridging Bremerton is a great day. Move to the next slide, please. I wanted, and I asked the chief if I could read this, and I didn't get a response, so I'm going to go ahead and read it, right? This is an email that our chief of police wrote to Director Nucky of Public Works, and it really hit me in the feels. And so I've asked to read this. This is from the chief to Director Nucky. Tom, yesterday we had a woman who was being physically beaten by her husband, and it was pretty bad. She was able to separate herself in the house and text for help. The husband, of course, denied she was in the house and refused entry. And when we were certain she was there against her will, my guys kicked the door in and took him into custody and were able to free her. The husband went to jail, of course, but his mother bailed him out. And though there was a no contact order issued, this left the woman with a broken down door and a small child and feeling very insecure and unsafe. My guys knew we could not leave the door unsecure, though they had no choice but to take the door down. So they jumped into action, and being that they are cops, they knew they needed some people with skills who could undo their handy or rather boot work. So of course they thought of facilities. There is nothing they can't fix or do. Within minutes, they were at the house assessing what was needed and teamed up with a corporal and a credit card. They got the materials to fix the door and gave a victim of domestic violence a little peace of mind. Your guys were pretty humble, and I was told even a little uncomfortable with all the praise our guys had for them, but they made a big difference yesterday, and we could not do what we do without their support all the time. I can't tell you how impressed I was with that. As a survivor and as a longtime advocate for domestic violence victims, I am so proud of our city and its collaboration between departments. You not only gave that woman peace of mind that night, you might have saved her life. And for that, again, I commend you. So I might have poked a little fun at your bike ride or your bike lane to nowhere, but you know what? When it really matters, you were there. And I so very much personally appreciate that. Thank you, Tom. That's it.
Next up, we have District 1, Council Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain.
Thank you. That got me in the feels too. I might be a little teary-eyed. I definitely, there's just so many benefits to living in a smallish town. Hearing that warmed my heart. Just knowing how many community groups are out there trying to help our houseless neighbors. How many groups are out there helping clean up and just create community and create support our beautiful rainbow community. And I am still reeling from that. But there's just so much ignorance and just kind of hatred out there, and it's getting a little bit better when we are able to come together as a community and support our neighbors, uplift our LGBTQ community and our youth, and exercise tolerance for people, even if they haven't showered or even if they act with antisocial behavior, is how humanity is going to thrive. We're not going to survive if we keep dividing people from each other, if we keep making fun of people because they choose different pronouns, if we keep hating on folks because they might have addiction issues. And I've heard people say, compassion isn't gonna fix the problem all the time, but I think compassion goes a long way in at least creating a more humane life. Thank you for being decent human beings. Everybody on this council, I absolutely fucking love you. And that's all I have to share for my district report. I'll have pictures next time.
Thank you. Got a request for add-on.
So
Go for it.
I'm sorry to do this to you. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that the Pride event this year is kind of celebrating Patrick Haggerty. He was, a friend of some of ours, a friend and neighbor, but he's known really worldwide to be the first out gay country musician and also to have the first gay country album. And so in honor, if you come to the festival, you'll see lots of lavender. We're having a regular lavender hoedown at the fairgrounds. So I just wanted to mention that because I just wanted to make sure we got Patrick's name in the record and I could push Jennifer a little further off the dais. Thank you, Council President.
No worries. I think I've never hit your 5-minute limit, so I think you're owed a little extra. Excellent. All right. Speaking of which, I'm going to hit my 5-minute limit tonight. Apologies in advance. And I got some slides to bring up here. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the Warren Bridge project. It came to us at study session after years of effort. I've been the council stakeholder on this for about a year now, and it's a project I've really deep dived into. And I kind of wanted to give my perspective from being so involved in it for the past year and where I'm leaning. And I've really waited to weigh in publicly with my kind of preference until we got the entire input from the public and council was able to see this. But I think now's the time for me to kind of distill it down. So if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to start with my conclusions and I'll put them up at the end. And I got a bunch of slides here, so I won't dwell too long on some of them. You can read more in the packet. But distilling it all down, I got to stay publicly. Alternative 7 and 8, which is 14 foot on the east side or 12 feet on the east side and 5 on the west, to me are the only viable alternatives that really meet these project objectives and ensure safety and really the will of people. And so these are the two options I really think are viable. And I personally just can't support a 10-foot option. I think we need a minimum of 12, and I'll go into why. So starting with the next slide. So a quick little history of this project with council. Back in 2019, council accepted the $1.5 million funding for preliminary design work for improvements to the bridge and connections north and south. In April 2021, we had a contract with WashDOT for design of the bridge, which included a description of work stating that we wanted to get a desirable shared use path width of 12 feet in accordance with the WashDOT design manual. Next slide. August 2021, we approved our first contract with SJC Alliance, and that included in the description of work 4 preliminary alternatives, which was 8 foot on both sides, 10 foot on both sides, 12 foot on the west side with a south end tunnel for connection, and a 12-foot option on the east side. And of course, this is all for connectivity to tie in to existing bicycle networks and the bridge-to-bridge trail. In October 2022, we approved a contract modification, which added specifically 2 alternatives. Again, 12 feet on the west side with south end tunnel, because that hadn't been studied yet, and a 14-foot west side with the south end tunnel. And then over the next about 6 months or so, a couple of other alternatives were added and studied, which included these 12 and 14-foot east side alternatives with and without a 5-foot ADA path on the west side. Next slide. And really, at the end of the day, we got all these alternatives on the table, which is fantastic. We studied a bunch, but there are really just 4 factors that are go or no go for each of them. The first one is it structurally feasible? Is the bridge going to fall down or not? Second one, is the bridge fully ADA compliant? We just kind of got the solid answer a couple months ago, but WashDOT does in fact require us to make sure both sides are ADA compliant. 3, is the bridge able to be inspected? The answer there is yes, if it's 14 feet or less from WashDOT. And finally, is it within budget? And the budget numbers include both design, construction, and inspection mitigation for those that are 12 feet or wider. So when you do this, you eliminate a bunch of alternatives. You end up with 4. The first one, 8 foot on both sides. You might as well do 10 on both sides. So if we go to the next slide, this really leaves us 3 alternatives that are within budget and meet all the prior objectives. We've got alternative 2, 10 foot on both sides. Alternative 7 with 5 on the west, 12 on the east, and alternative 8 with 5 on the west, 14 on the east. Again, these are all within budget. They are all viable, and it's now down to council to basically choose one of these 3 alternatives. Next slide. I did want to mention connectors. We've had a lot of discussion about this. Of course, we did pay for the contractor to study connectors, and they did, and so we have a lot of great options on the table. Personally, I've been convinced by Public Works Director Nucky's statements and others that indeed, I think we are best off spending all the money we have for this grant now on the bridge itself. And we can get state, federal grants for separate projects to establish these connectors later on. So I think I'm personally convinced of that now. That's the best path forward. Next slide. So why am I so adamant about 12 foot should really be the minimum? To me, it's safety. 10 feet to me is not a safe option, and it's not a modern option. 12 foot is really the de facto minimum. In fact, many bridges are built bigger. So one of the project documents references the Kitsap County Bicycle Facilities Plan, which says the minimum recommended width for a combined two-way bicycle and pedestrian use is 12 feet for high volume usage. And gosh, this bridge should be high volume usage with all the development going into East Side Village, growth downtown. We expect it to be used quite often. WashDOT Shared Use Path Design Manual also says desirable paved width of a shared use path is 12 feet. And the SR 303 corridor study, which of course is the entire length of 303, really stresses the bridge to bridge connection. And that we're not going to be able to tell people only take one way on this path. People will use it both ways. People will be going both ways, north and south. And so that is the goal, is to have this one big path across all the water in this bridge to bridge trail. And I do want to point out that when you read that study, the final preferred alternative was based on one of the three initial options, which was multimodal, which did initially state one side option was just fine. Next slide. Just real quick, one-sided bridges are quite common. And in fact, even the bottom left, Kenmore, they redid their bridge. They left one side 5 feet. They expanded the other side to 16 feet. Most places do at least 12 for modern design. Next slide. And this is an example of a 10-foot bridge. You can just imagine people not only going one direction like they are here, but coming the other way. It's not wide enough. It's not safe enough. Next slide. And here's 14 feet on the SR 520. I've written this. You can see that those extra feet make a big difference. You can have people biking, walking, strolling both ways. Next slide. And I really dived into the public comments again. And a couple of statements I wanted to point out by looking at it. Twice as many online survey respondents said they wanted a 12-foot or 14-foot option versus 10. Only about 20% of respondents said that they use existing sidewalks and prefer the west side, so east side should be just fine. We've heard repeatedly from bicycling experts from several different groups that 12 foot is really the minimum safe width, and many have advocated for 14 feet. And 14 feet, I think, is important, especially considering the rise of e-bikes and scooters and all the traffic we hope to get on this bridge. And finally, 73% of comments that mentioned the preference and width advocated for 12 feet or greater from the open house. So I think the public has really spoken quite clearly that a one wide side option with ADA access on the other side is just fine. So next slide, I'll wrap up here. So again, same as the first one. I personally just can't support a 10-foot option. I think the right thing to do is this option A, which is alternative 8, do 14 feet and 5. Any extra money we get in the future grants can be used to expand that 5-foot west side. We're really not sure we're going to get the money until 2028. We got time, but do that. It's in budget. It'll work. It fits the majority preference. One thing I could accept is 12-foot east side, 5-foot west, and same thing. We're really close to getting to 8 foot on the west side if we do 12 in the east with the current budget. So I just wanted to give that synopsis to council, and I'll be talking about it next week. And I hope we stare at all these three options together. Thanks for letting me go a little bit over on my time. And with that, we'll now convene for 2 executive sessions. We'll do one, come back, the vote, and then do the other. So the first executive session will convene for 15 minutes to discuss qualifications of an applicant for public employment and performance of a public employee as allowed per RCW 42.30.110, section 1, subsection G, and action is anticipated. We'll be back in 15 minutes. All right, I call the meeting back to order, and I'm going to call upon our city attorney to summarize the action before council.
The item before council involves a promotion of chancellor team to utility manager. there's been a vacancy in the utility manager position since June. The city's advertised for that position and has not received suitable applicants. The Public Works Director is seeking to hire Chance based on his qualifications. He's been with the city since 1988 in a variety of positions that are relevant to the qualifications for this position. And the request before council is that Chance be hired as utility manager at pay band 16, rate 17.
Excellent. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? We have nobody in the room, but let's double check there's no one online. All right, seeing and hearing no one for public comment. Attorney Fennell, can you read the recommended motion? And then I'll look for a so moved. Oh, yes, Councilmember Muir. Oh, and your microphone, sorry.
Move to hire Chance Barthum as utility manager at pay band 16, rate 7.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, council will now reconvene for our second executive session. 30 minutes to discuss with legal counsel about legal risks of current or proposed action as allowed under RCW 42.30.110, section 1, subsection I, and action is anticipated. We'll see you all in 30 minutes. All right, I call the regular meeting back to order. I'll now summarize the action before council. On Friday, June 14th, Judge Tracy Flood requested the city attorney appoint counsel for her in a matter pending before the Commission on Judicial Conduct. The city attorney referred the request to outside counsel to review potential options for response. The council has conferred with outside counsel, Scott Snyder. Under state law and city code, the determination to authorize defense of the Judge's Commission on Judicial Conduct statement of charges is vested in the city council. With that summarized, does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Double check online. There's nobody in the room. All right, seeing no public comment, I'll go to the council for a motion. Councilmember Fry.
I move to deny the request of Judge Flood for defense and indemnification. The current proceeding before the Washington State Commission on Judicial Conduct is not an action for damages as anticipated by RCW 4.96.041, nor Chapter 2.90 of the Bremerton Municipal Code. Further, Judge Flood did not provide notification within 7 days of receipt of the statement of allegations from the Washington State Commission on Judicial Conduct as required by Chapter 2.90 BMC. The council president is requested to forward this determination to Judge Flood.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call for the question.
Councilmember Goodnow,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, this includes the council meeting. Excuse me, I'll remember, find the date of the next council meeting here. Too many papers. Yeah, someone has a calendar in front of them. Like, here we go. All right. The next study session will be held in the 6th floor council conference room next Wednesday, July 26th, beginning at 5 p.m. with a remote option by Zoom. This concludes tonight's regular council business. Meeting is adjourned.